The Mimighoul archetype in Yu-Gi-Oh! Offers a completely different way of being able to play the game, which is what really interested me about getting these cards, as well as the fact that they're based off Japanese role-playing games mimicking chests and stuff like that. So I was well into this archetype when it was first announced, and the fact that it got the second wave of support and it is actually a semi-playable deck. It is really good at controlling the game, and it is quite consistent as well. Is really cool to me. I enjoy playing this deck. So today we are going to look into some of the cards that come with the Mimighoul archetype and talk through how you can use them to your advantage in terms of what the power levels of these cards are and how we use them for our plays. And then we are going to be doing a combo video at a later time. Don't know exactly when because we've got a few things coming out soon, but we're going to do a combo video at some point where we talk about how the Mimighoul combos work in order to be able to set up a really strong board for your end game. So if that sounds interesting to you, then please do subscribe down below. It would be very much appreciated if you could. This is all based off my Mimighoul deck profile that I released last week on the channel. So go and check that out, come back here, check this out, and let's see what these cards can cook up. So we've got a lot of cards to get through here. We kind of split this up into the original set of Mimighoul monsters that came out and then the second wave of support that came out, because there are key differences between the two of them. And then we've also got our Mimighoul master over here. We've got our spells, our Mimighoul room trap, and then our Xyz, as well as the summoning curse, which I want to talk to you about towards the end of the video. So let's go through all of these cards and just make sure that we're kind of on point as to exactly what we are doing here. So let's talk about Mimighoul Master to start with. Mimighoul Master is the only Mimighoul card, except for the Xyz, that is not supposed to be special summoned to the opponent's side of the field. So the entire play that we're going through with Mimighoul here is to special summon over to the opponent's side of the field in face down defense position. And then they have flip effects, which cause negative effects to your opponent because they're the controller, and a positive effect to you, and then gives the card back to you in order to be able to use it for Xyz plays. So Mimighoul Master helps with this a lot. So Mimighoul Master cannot be destroyed by a battle or card effects whilst your opponent controls a face down monster, or you control a Mimighoul monster other than Master. So most of the time you're ending on another card as well as Master. You're not just ending on itself, you're ending on one of the Xyz, or you're perhaps ending on Dragon, because Dragon ends up with 2500 attack once Dungeon is in play. So you're ending on another monster. So that comes up fairly often. You only use each of the following effects of Master once per turn. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can add one Mimighoul monster from your deck to your hand except for Master. So an easy search it, and the fact that you're adding it to your hand allows you to then use its special summoning to your opponent's side of the field. Really easy. So you can just search for whatever you want in order to continue those plays and really mess up the opponent by putting stuff that they don't want on their side of the field. And then during your opponent's main phase quick effect, you can change one face down monster on the field to face up, attack, or defense position. So it allows you to, for a start, change your one of your Mimighoul monsters on your opponent's side of the field, flip it face up so they get that negative effect, and then they have to pass it back to you. There's good targets for this. Obviously, Fairy, which we're going to go through in a second. Fairy allows us to just kind of lock the opponent a little bit, or Archfiend will make them have to get rid of cards from their hand. So yeah, there's really good targets for this, and you can just do this as a quick effect in your opponent's main phase. So they get the chance to play a card, and then you can just immediately do that to get that effect on them. So yeah, really handy card to have in the deck. I only run one of them because it is incredibly searchable in the deck, which we're going to go through in a second. All right, next up we've got the first wave of support. So the first wave of support was really designed around, these cards have got effects on the opponent's side of the field and then effects on your side of the field. So they've got their flip effect, which you're going to activate on the opponent's side of the field. So all of them do something when they're flipped face up. So Dragon destroys all face up monsters that you control, which will be your opponent because you're giving it to your opponent, and then it gives control of Dragon back to yourself. Cerberus here, you banish the top 3 cards of the deck, which will be your opponent's, and then special summon one of those banished monsters to the opponent's field in defense position. So again, really useful. The opponent chooses, but that's absolutely fine. And then Mimighoul Archfiend, your opponent draws a card, so you'll get to draw a card. Then and then send one card from hand to graveyard. So your opponent sends that card from hand to graveyard because it's on their side of the field. So you just got to look at it as they're controlling these cards at that point, then give control of this back to you. So it's difficult to kind of talk about when you're saying your opponent, because the card is saying your opponent regarding you, but you've put it there for them. So it's something that, you know, there's some really strong effects there. So Dragon and Archfiend here have got a really good amount of synergy together. So Dragon also, during your main phase, you can special summon this card from your hand to your opponent's field and face down defense position. That is on all of the Mimighoul monsters except for Master. So we won't need to go through that again. And then if this card is normal or special summoned, so this is to your side of the field in face up attack or defense position, not when you special summon it to the opponent's side of the field, because it's going face down, so it doesn't have an effect at that point. But if you normal or special summon it to your side of the field, you can add one Mimighoul spell or trap from your deck to your hand. So these three initial cards had effects basically when they were on your side of the field as well, whereas the second wave of support did not have those effects, but they did have ways to special summon themselves easier. So Dragon lets you add a spell or trap from deck to hand, which you're going to be adding your field spell, Mimighoul Dungeon. Cerberus, you've got the option of so you basically, when it's on your side of the field, the opponent cannot target face-up spells that you control with card effects. So it protects your dungeon from targeting effects, which is pretty good. It's not the best way of being able to protect it. If you just protected your back row in general, then that would be a lot better. But being able to protect it from targeting effects is useful. And then you've got Archfiend here. So when Archfiend is normal or special summoned, you can change one face down monster on the field to face up, attack, or defense position, which then obviously allows your other Mimighoul monsters to pop off. So really useful three cards that you can use there. Cerberus is probably the worst of the three. Archfiend and Dragon have got fantastic synergy together. And when we go through combos, you're going to see what those two cards can do for each other. Okay, and then the second wave of support, they changed it up a little bit. So the second wave of support, you still have the effects on the opponent's side of the field when you summon them there and then you flip them face up. But then they each can special summon themselves in a different way. So armor here, so this girl Mimighoul monsters cannot be destroyed by battle. Kind of a useful effect. If you don't have a card to flip up at any point, armor's one that you can just do in order to be able to protect your monsters for another turn. But it's probably one of the weaker effects realistically is Mimighoul armor. Cannot be destroyed by battle is fine, but it doesn't protect you from card effects or anything like that. So Mimighoul armor is probably the weaker one to get that effect for. But you can also, if your opponent controls a monster, you can special summon this card face up on your field. And all of them are level 1, which allows us to go in for our level 1 Xyzes. So yeah, we've got options there of just being able to special summon the card to your side of the field, which is, you know, really strong, because you do need to get into these Xyz monsters at some point. Then you got Mimighoul Slime. So Mimighoul Slime, when he's flipped up, your opponent can special summon one Mimighoul monster from their deck to the field, which then you can, obviously, that allows you to go in for your Dragon, for your Archfiend, if you want to turn something else face up. You can go for whatever you want at that point, just to be able to summon it onto your side of the field and get its effect. So you're going to go for one of the original three. And probably Dragon most likely, but also like there's no reason why you can't go for Master with that as well. You can go for Master with it, and then also if your opponent controls more monsters than you do, you can special summon this card face up on your field. So again, another way of getting access to that level 1 if you're not able to flip up monsters, or if it's on your turn, you've just got them in your hand. It allows you to go in for those Xyz plays. And then finally, you've got Mimighoul Fairy. If this is flipped up on the opponent's side of the field, this turn you cannot activate the effects of monsters special summoned from your hand. So it's a floodgate, and it's not a very nice floodgate. So anything which gets special summoned from the hand, Fairy just stops it from being able to use its effect. It's a lingering effect, it just hangs around. And then also, if you control a Mimighoul monster, you can special summon this card face up on your field, which again is another way of getting into those level 1 plays. So really strong cards. Fairy is incredibly powerful. Floodgate, it's really strong, just being able to flip that on your opponent's turn so they can't use the effects of anything special summoned from the hand. That's really strong. Admittedly, a lot of cards now are kind of special summoned from the graveyard or maybe even straight from the deck or something like that. But there are monsters, of course, which require, they'll be special summoned from the hand. You think like Kashtira Fenrir or something like that. You know, it's going to be special summoned from the hand. So therefore, Mimighoul Fairy stops it from being able to use its powerful effects. All right, let's go on to the Xyz monsters now. Let's finish off the monsters. So, 2 Xyz monsters currently exist within Mimighoul. We got Giant Mimighoul and Mimighoul Throne. So both of them require level 1s. Throne requires them to be Mimighoul monsters, which is absolutely fine because we're not playing any other level 1 monsters in the deck anyway. So you can detach 1 material from this card to special summon 1 Mimighoul Master from your hand, deck, or graveyard, which is why I only play the 1 copy of Master. I suppose the unfortunate thing would be if it got banished in any way, you can't bring it back from the banishment, but you can, you know, deck, graveyard, hand, it doesn't matter, you just get that special summon of Master, which is really good. During the main phase, quick effect, you can target 1 Mimighoul Master that you control, equip this card to it as an equip spell that gives it 1000 attack, and then you can return cards from the field to the hand up to the number of materials this card had. So it allows you to get some of your Mimighoul monsters back into your hand, which is really useful for being able to use them again in the future. Because once you've got them on the field, if you've not managed to use them, getting them back into your hand so you can place them on your opponent's side of the field or something like that. Say, for example, you've used Fairy's effect in order to special summon it out. You can bring it back in order to then put it on the opponent's side of the field. Or if you've brought Fairy to your side of the field from the graveyard in some way, you can bring it back to your hand to special summon it to your opponent's side of the field or something like that. It's really useful to be able to do that. Plus it boosts your Mimighoul Master. Once the first turn after Mimighoul Master has been summoned through Dungeon, we'll go through Dungeon in a second, Mimighoul Master would then be at 4000 attack, which makes it a really strong boss monster. Then you got Giant Mimighoul, probably the most expensive card I think in the archetype, because it is the 1 secret rare that we got in Mimighoul. 2 level 1 monsters. Your non-Xyz Mimighoul monsters can attack directly whilst your opponent controls a face-down monster. So they don't only have to control a face-down monster, it is whilst they control a face-down monster. So they can just have 1 and the rest of their field be face-up. That's absolutely fine, you can still attack directly. And obviously, if you're attacking directly with a 4000 attack Mimighoul Master, or even 3000 if you've got just Master and Dungeon on the field, that's a really strong effect. You can only use each of the following effects of Giant Mimighoul once per turn. If this card is Xyz summoned, you can add 1 Mimighoul card from your deck to your hand, and that is just card. So that allows you a full search of anything you want within the archetype, which is very, very powerful when you look at what we've got in the spells or what monsters you can grab. If you want a specific monster on your opponent's side of the field, you can just add that to your hand and grab that when you summon Giant Mimighoul out. And you can detach 1 material from this card, then target face-up cards on the field, up to the number of face-down monsters that your opponent controls, and destroy them. And if you do, inflict 1000 damage to your opponent for each card destroyed. So if your opponent, that's kind of almost a going second effect, or if you want to just close out a game or deal some extra damage, you can destroy face-up monsters on the field. Depending on how many the opponent has got face down, you can destroy face-up monsters on the field in order to be able to do that. It's not an effect that I've used a massive amount because I'm normally going turn 1 and then the opponent can't summon all that much or use all that much in order to be able to get massive amount of use out of Giant Mimighoul. But it is still it's still there as a potential way of dealing some life point damage so you can go in for an OTK. All right, we've talked enough about the monsters now. Let's go on to these spells and the trap. So let's talk about Mimighoul Maker. Mimighoul Maker is insane. So reveal 2 flip monsters with different names from your deck.
Your opponent randomly picks one for you to special summon to their field in face down defense position, and you add the other to your hand, and then you can special summon one Mimighoul monster from your hand. Now, I don't really need to tell you how powerful that is. No matter what, you can get a Mimighoul monster onto your opponent's side of the field in face down defense position, and you can bring one to your hand, which ideally you want to be targeting with this one, Archfiend and Dragon, because those two really synergize well together and allow you to go in for some really strong plays. So yeah, Mimighoul Maker is crazy for that. Now, if your opponent special summons a monster except during the damage step, you can banish this card from the graveyard, target one face down monster your opponent controls, and change it to face up attack or defense position. So again, something that you can use in your graveyard. If your opponent's special summoning something, then you can flip fairy, and then they can't activate the effects of that monster that they've just special summoned or something like that. So it's a really, really powerful effect. So Mimighoul Dungeon is our field spell, and the field spell is, you know, it is really something. Again, it's more floodgating effects as well. So this is a control deck. I make no excuses for it. It is a control deck. And it is not fun for the opponent to play against. And Mimighoul Dungeon is part of that. So Mimighoul monsters that you control that were not special, normal or special summoned this turn gain attack equal to their original defense. So that's why Mimighoul Master ends up being a 3000 attack monster. Mimighoul Dragon ends up being 2500. So everything else doesn't get kind of that massive. I forget what Cerberus gets to. 22. Archfiend is 19. Fairy. Yeah, these three don't really get that high. 21 on armor, I suppose, is something. But you've got something there. And then obviously your giant Mimighoul gets to 33 as well. So, you know, they do get to be, you get some really strong boss monsters on the field with that, with Master and Giant Mimighoul. During the opponent's turn. So once you've gone through all of your plays on your turn, once you pass, that will kick in. Any player who controls a face-down monster cannot normal summon monsters, nor declare an attack with monsters that were special summoned this turn. So if you keep a face-down monster on the opponent's side of the field, they can't normal summon, and if you flip a Mimighoul Fairy over, then they can't use the effects of special summoned monsters either, and they can't attack with those special summoned monsters, meaning you've got quite a strong lock there of cards which interact well with each other. So what have you got? What have they got left? Well, yeah, not a whole lot. Not a whole lot. They've got their spells and traps that they can do stuff with, and that's about it. Then during your main phase, you can add one Mimighoul monster from your deck or graveyard to your hand. You can only use this effect of Dungeon once per turn. So yeah, absolutely crazy. Just being able to search any of your monsters is really powerful on your field spell, and you're controlling the game for sort of multiple turns, most likely. You can just get that every turn, every one of your turns, which is absolutely brilliant. All right, Mimighoul Fork now, probably the weakest of the three spells that we've got here. There is also Mimighoul Charm. I didn't want to go through Mimighoul Charm today because it's they're definitely the weakest of the three, the weakest of the four. But Mimighoul Fork, target one face-down monster your opponent controls. Your opponent chooses one of the following effects and you apply that effect. So they can either change it to face-up attack or defense position and incur the wrath of whatever Mimighoul monster it is, or they can send it to the graveyard and then its owner draws 2 cards. So they've got an option of basically taking whatever effect is coming with the Mimighoul monsters or giving you a pot of greed, which is really strong. The only problem is that the opponent chooses. So if they think, well, giving them a draw 2 during my turn is not giving them a draw 2 isn't going to be too detrimental or anything like that. If they think that, then they're probably wrong, but there you go. And you can banish this card from your graveyard to add one Mimighoul Fork from deck to hand. But you can only use each effect once per turn. Obviously, it'll be absolutely broken if you could use multiple Mimighoul Forks per turn. But being able to just banish it from the graveyard to add another one, so you can do it again next turn, and just force the opponent to have these choices. And I like the idea that it is like a fork in the road in the dungeon. It's really cool. So yeah, I like Mimighoul Fork. Compared to Maker and Dungeon, it's up there. It's a good card, but it's probably not the most powerful, just because the opponent gets that choice. And then finally, the trap, we've got Mimighoul Room. Special summon one Mimighoul monster from your hand or deck to your field, or in face-down defense position to your opponent's field. Then you can change one face-up monster on the field to face-down defense position. So that is useful for your own guard dog. So I play guard dog in this deck, which I just play it as one of, is something that I can set face down on my side of the field if I wanted to, and then I can turn it face up with Mimighoul Room or Mimighoul Master. I could turn it face up with Mimighoul Master, then turn it face down again with Mimighoul Room in order to be able to get that effect again on another turn, because the guard dog is another floodgatey effect that absolutely stops the opponent dead. You can banish this card from your graveyard, then target any number of Mimighoul cards that you control and return them to the hand. You can only use one Mimighoul Room effect per turn and only once that turn. So again, you're probably activating this kind of on your opponent's turn, and then on your turn you can take it back in order to take back cards that you control back to your hand and then in order to be able to special summon them to your opponent's field again. So you've got lots of options with Mimighoul Room. All right, last card that I want to talk about is Summoning Curse. Summoning Curse is a very dirty card in Mimighoul. When the play comes off, it's really good. It's one of them that you know, this isn't a card that you can search for in the deck or anything like that, thank God. And also, you've got to be careful as to when you play it on your turn, because if you play it before you kind of finished your plays, then you're going to be taking its effects as well. So you've got to be careful as to exactly when you are doing it, but also you're able to really cheese the opponent with these. So if a monster is special summoned, the current controller of that monster banishes one card from their hand. Once per turn during your end phase, pay 500 life points or destroy this card. Okay, so Summoning Curse is dirty. So when you special summon a monster to your opponent's side of the field, they become the current controller of that monster. So therefore, your opponent will have to banish one card from their hand. So if you are going to be using your Mimighoul monsters to special summon something face down on their side of the field, you can use Summoning Curse in order to get them to banish cards. So what you can do is finish off all of your plays, lay down Summoning Curse, and then whatever Mimighoul monsters you've got left in your hand, just slap them on the opponent's side of the field. So one, they've got face down monsters, which obviously puts Dungeon in effect. Two, you can use Mimighoul Master in order to be able to flip them next turn. And then three, Summoning Curse will make them banish cards from their hand. And that is really strong. And then you can just pop it at the end of the turn, not pay the 500 life points and pop it during the end of the turn. Depending on how many you get them to banish, they may not have any plays whatsoever during their turn. So what would be the harm in popping it? Or you could leave it up there, then they can't special summon anything without needing to banish a card anyway. So yeah, it's a really dirty effect. Combine it with Archfiend as well, which has got the effect of being able to make the opponent send a card from their hand to the graveyard. That's a lot of different ways of just being able to hand rip the opponent during this. And then you can do other things as well. Like you can couple all of this with Triple Tactics Talent. If you flip a Mimighoul monster, then they're activating their monster effect on your turn. So you can activate Triple Tactics Talent and hand rip the opponent. So you've got multiple avenues of just hand ripping the opponent, taking cards out of their hands and just chuck them in the graveyard, chuck them in the banish, put them back into the deck. Loads of different options on this one. So Triple Tactics Talent actually didn't feature in my deck profile, but the more I think about it, the more I think, oh, I really should put Triple Tactics Talent in there, and Thrust, of course. So with that is the Mimighoul archetype kind of explained in a nutshell. So hopefully you enjoyed this. Hopefully you enjoyed the kind of look into the Mimighoul monsters. What I'm going to be doing is do a combo video for this. Like I say, I don't know when it's exactly going to be coming out, but the combo video is basically going to be your two options for Mimighoul Maker. That's the idea that I've got. Is one of the combos, or two of the combos, is going to be what you choose with Mimighoul Maker and what you do in the event of it going your way or going the other way, or what you do. So yeah. Really, really great deck. It's a really fun deck for you to play. It's a really horrible deck for the opponent to play. My friend Antonio absolutely hates me playing Mimighoul. Really, he's not managed to properly suss them out just yet. I'm sure that he will. It's not the strongest deck in the world, but it frustrates him to no end, and I like that. So, yeah, thank you very much for watching, everybody. I hope you have enjoyed this, and I'll see you next time.